So, hello, Emily. I'm Isobel Savage, tax partner at Bishop Fleming. I'd like to say hello to you on Global Recycling Day. Extend a very warm welcome to you as Director and Shareholder of Coastal Recycling.
Thank you, Isobel. Really good to be here, and it's a pleasure.
So would you mind sharing a little bit about what Coastal Recycling does?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're the largest independent recycling company in the region. We offer a variety of services. Skip hire is one of our main ones, and we recycle the construction waste that comes out of sort of people's houses and in terms of domestic recycling plus big commercial projects. And general household clearances will recycle anything and everything that gets put in a skip. Also, we have wheelie bins, so the commercial businesses that dispose of both general waste and what we call dry recycling. So the stuff we put in our recycling bins, really, paper, card, bottles, cans, all of that gets collected by our dust carts and turns up at our site and gets put in a great big processing facility where we sort of segregate it all into its different components. And we also do all the garden waste composting for Devon. So we've got about 30 trucks on the road and 140 staff across the county.
Wow. Okay, so onto the recycling specifically then. So I looked on your website and it says that you recycle 96%, recycle or recover 96% of the material that you handle. So where does it go? Once you've sorted it and separated it, once it gets onto site, what do you do with the different component parts?
Yeah, so the three sort of main areas that we've got are the construction waste. So again, that arrives at site. We have men and machines picking through it and segregating it. And then the different components go to different places. So you've got wood as a big category of construction waste, for example, that will go off and be pelletized. You've got hardcore, which might go off for aggregate use. Soils, which if they're clean enough can be reused, or if not, will go to landfill. And then card, paper, plastic, all of those go to the various onward recycling plants. That's for construction. And then the dry recycling, if you like, we will separate that into its different components. And again, that goes on to be made. So paper might be made into tissue paper, for example. Plastic could be made into plastic bags. And then the other main one that we do is garden waste. So that arrives on our site. Waste collected from your clippings collected from your garden, lawn clippings, all sorts of things like that, and we shred it down, and then we'll screen it out to clean it up into a much cleaner product. And then ultimately it sits in a windrows, which is like a long pile. It will sit there for 12 weeks, and we turn it to make sure the internal temperatures are monitored, and eventually it turns into a beautiful clean compost soil conditioner that farmers take away and use on their land.
Brilliant. Okay, so I suppose what sort of materials still cause issues in terms of recyclability or an onward market?
Yeah, I'd say plasterboard is a big challenge of ours at the moment, actually, because of its gypsum content. It's quite nasty. It's got nasty gases that when it mixes with other biodegradable wastes, it can really cause hydrogen sulfate gas and can be very problematic. So we need to make sure it doesn't go into that mixing process. We call it our trommel process. And we do that by speaking with customers to try and get them to bag it separately. So as soon as it arrives on site, we can pull it out. But of course, that doesn't always happen in practice. So that's probably our biggest challenge.
Okay. So, Emily, the remaining 4% that isn't recycled or recovered, does that all go to landfill?
No, as much as possible, we'll divert to energy from waste, which obviously is turned into energy. But there are products that must only go to landfill, unfortunately, and I'm not sure that will change. Things like asbestos, that has to be double bagged and protected and then buried in the ground with lots of soil on top. Contaminated soils, the same thing. Plasterboard I mentioned earlier, because there's nasty content in a lot of these materials, so the only place for them is landfill. But realistically, with landfills, we've had one ourselves. As long as they're capped properly underneath the cell and on top of the cell, and leachate and gas emissions are controlled and managed, they really shouldn't pose much of a threat to the environment anyway.
Okay. May I ask what impact COVID's had on your business? So I know that there's going to be some sectors that have been very hard hit. I think construction, there was a little blip at the beginning, but probably has continued and in fact seems to be on the increase. And then I was reading an article that was suggesting that households, which possibly not so much of your business, but households have been better at separating their waste because there's been more people at home. What impact have you seen?
Yes, so it's been mixed. Certainly in the early days, the first lockdown, everything came to a standstill, and even construction did stop, and we were hit quite hard then. But we took advantage of first, and we got through that. But fortunately, through mid-May, we were virtually back to normal, and construction picked up again. That's carried on all the way through, and that's been good. And actually, with less traffic on the roads, we've done very well on the skip side, so that's been really positive. The garden waste, again, in the early days, the recycling centres closed, so we saw less of that. But ever since mid-May, that's been booming. People at home cutting their grass, that's been good. And on the local authority domestic recycling, we have seen a big jump. That's been an area of growth for us, because we had some contracts with local authorities to take their recycling before, but with the boom, as you said, people at home eating, drinking, producing more waste at home. These ex-City Council, West Devon, East Devon, South Hams, they've all produced a lot more than they had before. And so we're able to help local authorities out and take more waste than we've taken before, which is great. And hopefully we'll sort of cement some longer term relationships out of it and help the councils out in the longer term. So overall, we're really pleased with how we've got through COVID and been able to offer our services and do a good job.
Brilliant. And hopefully some of those, I suppose it's behaviours of the public in terms of recycling more. Hopefully they're here to stay. I suppose I was also reading that there is an EU target for recycling for the UK of 50%. I think it was supposed to have been reached by last year. I'm not quite sure. And I just wondered, I understand that as a nation, we're sort of nowhere near it. Wales are doing apparently a lot better than us. And I'm just wondering if there's any lessons that we could take and learn from.
Yeah, I think with Wales, from what I understand, they do a lot more curbside collection. So we'll have the smaller, the boxes, individual boxes for individual separation at source. Generally, separating at source will produce a higher recycling rate because obviously nothing's being mixed up. And if residents are doing it correctly, that will achieve the best result. And I think due to the demographic and geography in Wales, that's rolled out across the country. So they are at around 60%, I think. Whereas this country, there are parts of the country where that curbside collection process isn't possible. You know, if you've got a lot of houses, you know, in a close proximity, having space to store lots of separate bins per house, per flat, isn't always achievable. So I think, you know, it's going to be a struggle to keep up with areas that can do that.
Yeah, okay. What can we do then as individuals and businesses in terms of improving our recycling rates and what we do?
Well, as individuals, I would say don't take plastic bags. So, you know, that's a really good one. If we can reuse bags and reuse anything, really, reuse things around the home, and just taking that extra time to wash something out, put it in the recycling bin rather than putting it in the general waste bin, because really that recycling bin should fill up a lot quicker. You know, everything's lighter and bulkier. We want to be collecting recycling from people's homes more frequently and general waste much less frequently. So taking that time really to, you know, it makes you feel good to wash out a yogurt pot and stick it in the recycling bin. So do it.
I was going to ask about that actually. Food contamination, is that a real problem with recycling
It is.
sort of waste? Yeah, okay.
It turns something from being recyclable into not being recyclable. So you have to get rid of the contamination for it to be recycled.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of you as a business, is there anything that you're working on at the moment to improve how the percentage of what you're able to recycle?
Yeah, we've got quite a big innovation project going on in our MRF. MRF is our material recycling facility. So it's where we take our dry mix recycling, and the machinery that we use is fairly old at the moment. We're looking to replace it with much more technologically advanced processes where the screens might be finer and the magnets might just be more accurate. The lasers can pick out different grades of plastic. And ultimately, we've got something which is a bit like a sieve, and small pieces fall through it, and we lose recycling through that process. And by improving that with improved technology, the amount of residue, which is the bit left over that goes to landfill or incinerator, will be reduced. So we're spending a lot of money developing that plant. And then we're also working with customers, because the more they can segregate at source, the better we recycle. So instead of having one skip for everything, perhaps have 3 skips, one for your wood and one for your hardcore or soil, and then one for everything else that can't be recycled. And by doing that, we'll certainly achieve much greater recycling.
Okay, thank you. Are you, I'm just interested, do you do any work with the community to sort of raise awareness of what can be done and what should be done?
Yeah, we do. We talk with schools quite a lot, because I do think educating the younger generation is really important. We've been to schools and done presentations to talk about the importance and showed them what their recycling efforts can achieve. We also go to Farmwise each year, which is a local event in Devon, where we can show the children our compost that's produced from the garden waste. And we'll take any opportunity like this today, just to have a chat, let people know what we're doing and why it's so important.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So I was reading today about Global Recycling Day. So it was brought in a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, to recognise and celebrate the importance that recycling plays. And you probably know much more about this than me, but this idea of recyclables being the 7th resource, because all the other 6 resources are finite. We're talking about gas or coal or air, minerals, water. And this whole idea that actually with these recyclables, our 7th resource, we've got something that is an infinite resource, because it can keep going forever. I suppose I just wondered if you had a final message to leave us with, Emily, on Global Recycling Day, something that we could and should be doing.
Yeah, sure. Well, I thought a few facts on that point might be good to share, because the 7th resource, ultimately, we're reversing, the carbon emissions created from the industries. So thought it might be useful to share that humans have consumed more resources in the last 50 years than in all previous history. So it's becoming more and more of a problem. 7th resource supplies 40% of the world's raw materials needed. So we're reversing that problem quite significantly. And actually, this 7th resource, recycling, offsets the CO2 emissions generated by the whole aviation industry annually. So by recycling more, not only offset that, but we'll offset more and more. And we're very proud at Coastal to be a recovery and recycling business, and producing that 7th resource. We're all extremely proud, and we're making a significant difference. But I think the key message to everyone out there really is we can all do this. We can all recycle more and be aware and share the message, and let's make it trendy, let's make it cool, and make a big difference.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Emily. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.